President Trump is accusing the Chinese Communist Party of covering up the deadly coronavirus, cracking down on Hong Kong, and corrupting the World Health Organization. And now, the Trump administration and Congress are taking serious action. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Things between the U.S. and China are getting tense. Relations are more fractured than this stock image I found on the internet. More aggressive than this image. And, okay, this is just an irresponsible way to load shipping containers. But the point is this.
U.S.-China relations are at their worst point in living memory for a number of decades, probably since the 1970s.
Wow, since the 70s? I'd say things have gone kapow. And relations just got worse after Trump gave this press conference on May 29th just to talk about one thing.
China, China's China, 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 China's China's China, 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 China's China, 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 China.
28 times in 9 minutes. Trump is really going after China, and he's doing it bigly. More specifically, in the past month or so, we've seen the Trump administration take a number of increasingly serious steps that are changing the way the U.S. is dealing with China. It's made clear in this 16-page strategic document from May 20th. The White House says that U.S.-China diplomatic relations were established in 1979, premised on the hope that deepening engagement would spur fundamental economic and political opening in the People's Republic of China and lead to its emergence as a constructive and responsible global stakeholder. But guess what? It didn't turn out that way. This approach underestimated the will of the Chinese Communist Party to not do any of the things it promised. How did this happen for so long?
They were able to get away with the theft like no one was able to get away with before because of past politicians and, frankly, past presidents.
No past presidents in particular. I mean, he could be talking about anyone. But the point is, the Trump administration is taking a fundamentally new approach to China and is actually following it up with meaningful action. The Trump administration has told the public about it, but the public seems to not be paying much attention. I mean, what else could be dominating the news cycle? Yeah, that's a topic for our other show, America Uncovered. Since this is China Uncensored, let's talk about some of the things the U.S. is doing about China. First, the State Department told Congress last week that Hong Kong is no longer free. This comes after China's National People's Congress announced that they have a new solution to address the Hong Kong protests against the Chinese Communist Party. They will simply take away people's right to protest against the Chinese Communist Party. China's new national security law is a little more complex than that, but the point is, it seriously undermines Hong Kong's freedoms. And it absolutely breaks the promise Beijing had made when Hong Kong was handed to China, which is they wouldn't interfere with Hong Kong until the year 2047. If you're interested in learning more about that whole situation, check out our episode from last week. In response to Beijing taking away Hong Kong's freedoms, the Trump administration has told Beijing, fine, if you're going to rule Hong Kong like mainland China, then we're going to treat Hong Kong like mainland China. Trump is using the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, which was passed almost unanimously by Congress last year. That bill amended the Hong Kong Policy Act to give the president the ability to use executive orders to change any of the special privileges Hong Kong enjoyed under U.S. law because it was autonomous. For example, the president can put the same U.S. trade tariffs on Hong Kong that it has on mainland China. Separately, it also now allows the president to sanction specific Chinese and Hong Kong officials who are responsible for taking away Hong Kong's freedom. And Trump says he's going to do it.
The United States will also take necessary steps to sanction PRC and Hong Kong officials directly or indirectly involved in eroding Hong Kong's autonomy and just, if you take a look, absolutely smothering Hong Kong's freedom.
The second thing the Trump administration is doing is pulling the U.S. out of the World Health Organization because China has manipulated it into helping the Chinese regime cover up the coronavirus. Here's how Trump explained it.
China has total control over the World Health Organization, despite only paying $40 million per year compared to what the United States has been paying, which is approximately $450 million a year. We have detailed the reforms that it must make and engage with them directly, but they have refused to act. Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms, we will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving, urgent global public health needs.
Now, I just want to make clear that I would never personally say anything bad about the WHO because YouTube doesn't like that. Moving on. The third thing the U.S. government is doing is restricting or canceling visas for Chinese students with ties to China's military universities. Some Western media have framed this as racism meets warmongering, which seems a little extreme. Sure, it would potentially affect around 3,000 students, but that's less than 1% of the roughly 360,000 Chinese students in the U.S. Because, again, it only targets students with direct ties to Chinese military universities. This has nothing to do with 99% of the students from mainland China. Not that Chinese state-run media haven't had a field day ignoring this fact. They call the new rules political persecution and racial discrimination. The fourth thing the U.S. government is doing is looking at delisting Chinese stocks from the U.S. stock markets. A recent Senate bill would require companies to certify that they are not under the control of a foreign government, which is basically aimed at China, since all large Chinese companies are connected to the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government. On the one hand, the Communist Party would publicly deny this, but on the other hand, they have very clearly shown they're deeply integrated with so-called private Chinese companies. A 2017 report in state-run China Daily said that Communist Party organizations exist in nearly 70% of some 1.86 million privately owned Chinese companies. And in 2018, the Chinese Communist Party issued new guidelines requiring all listed firms, at home and abroad, to include in their internal corporate guidelines an expansive role for the Communist Party. So this new bill, if it becomes law, would make it very difficult for any Chinese company to be listed on U.S. stock markets. And all the things I mentioned that the Trump administration and Congress are doing are part of a broad shift in how the U.S. treats China. No longer a strategic partner, but a strategic competitor. One that doesn't share American values, and one that has a history of breaking promises. Back in 2016, when Trump was running for office, a lot of media said Trump's tough talk on China won't change a thing. And they were right. Tough talk didn't change a thing. But the Trump administration, with growing bipartisan support in Congress, is following up that tough talk with tough action. And I think we'll be seeing more of that in the very near future. The Chinese Communist Party is not happy, as you can see from their state-run media. That's a terrible picture. They probably should have gone with kapow. And now it's time for me to answer a question from a viewer who supports China Uncensored on Patreon. Partha N asks, Chris, what are your thoughts on Boris Johnson offering Hong Kongers British citizenship? Do you think other countries will follow suit? US, Australia, Taiwan? Or will the domestic economic difficulties caused by the CCP flu make this humanitarian gesture a non-starter? Do you think Hong Kong citizens will take up offers to relocate to other countries in any significant numbers? Good question. So far, the UK government has not offered citizenship to Hong Kong refugees, but they will now extend the right of Hong Kongers who are eligible to hold British national overseas passports to stay 12 months in the UK instead of just 6 months. It could eventually pave the way for UK citizenship for 3 million Hong Kongers. But right now, it's just the right to stay in the UK for 12 months, although that is extendable indefinitely. So while the new visa extension is a good start, the UK could do a lot more, and probably they should. Unlike the US, Taiwan, or Australia, the UK has a special obligation to help the people of Hong Kong. After all, the UK's capitulation to Chinese pressure in the 1980s to give Hong Kong to communist China, that's what put Hong Kongers in this mess in the first place. The UK needs to do more than just give a polite apology. As far as other countries, so far it looks like Taiwan will also try to help Hong Kongers who want to leave. Some Hong Kongers say that it's time to get out, while others say they want to stay and fight for their home. It's hard to say right now how many will leave. Thanks for your question, Partha N. And thank you for watching. I answer questions at the end of these episodes from fans who support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/China Uncensored to learn more. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.